Welcome to the Every Brain Matters podcast. I'm your host, Aubrey Adams, and today we learn how hemp products are leading to episodes of psychosis and even suicide. Hi, everybody. I'm here with my friend, Jennifer Starkle. She's here to talk about her son, Nathaniel, and how hemp products affected him and his life and affected their lives. In the 2018 Farm Bill, they legalized hemp, then they legalized CBD. And unfortunately, the hemp industry is taking CBD products that have potential medical benefits to it, and they're converting it back to variants of THC. And one of those variants is called Delta-8 THC. But they also have different variants, Delta-10 THC, Delta-12, and so on. And we'll put a description in the discussion part of this podcast so you can read more about that. But Jennifer, I welcome you. I'm inspired by you. I want to give you my deepest condolences on the loss of your son. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to share your son with us and the Every Brain Matters community so we can raise awareness of these potential harms. So Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you.
Can you first describe what type of person Nathaniel was? Can you tell us a little bit about him?
The first thing that comes to mind is he was very creative, and also very kind. He would do anything for anyone. People were always astounded when he would always hold doors open for them and display manners that often they don't see anymore. He was just very kind-hearted, creative right from the get-go. He 4 or 5 years old, he is sitting there making very intricate origami items. And he was I homeschooled my 2 boys, and we would go to the homeschool group, and he'd teach kids 5, 6 years older than him. He'd sit there as a 5-year-old teaching them how to do the origami. And that was just really the start of a lot of the things. He still did paper crafts. They just got tinier and tinier. There's probably I have a little Jeep of his that's maybe 1 inch, and it has all the details, little tiny details, antennas, the steering wheel, everything, all out of paper. It just was amazing. And a lot of people were just astounded by his gift and that. And he would spend just hours and days on those things. And he would also do metal things like that. And then even when he was young, he also got into First Connects, probably 5 years younger than the recommended age. And then he did the same thing with Lego. And then he continued that Lego passion, which is something that we shared together. He went more Star Wars and that kind of thing. And we just really liked to create. It was very hands-on. He was very reliable. Every job he had, loved to have him because he was, there early, he was there every day, didn't call in unless he was deathly ill. So just a really great young man.
And did he get that talent from you with the fine motor skills?
No, I'm not sure that's all his own, because both my husband and I don't quite have that talent, nor quite that patience. Now, my husband admittedly has more patience than I, but I can work on the Lego for a while, but to sit there with things, he would design his own tools to work with it, things that would hold it together while he worked on it. And it was definitely his own talent.
So cool. I definitely would not have the fine motor skills or the focus to detail like that to accomplish something so intricate to that. And you guys are from Florida, is that correct?
Well, we're originally from Michigan, and we moved down to Florida probably, I think it's about 12 years, if I'm remembering correctly. And so we lived in Florida for quite a few years. We had 2 years we did move to Tennessee and then back down to Florida. And then just recently we now in Ohio.
You're in Ohio now. And do you have other children?
I have one other son, Kyle, who is 18 months, about 2 years younger than Nathaniel is.
Okay. And Jennifer, let's get to the hard part now. You and I had had a conversation. You've shared Nathaniel's story with me, and you started sharing about how things changed about a week before his passing. Could you start there and describe what happened, what you observed?
Yes, it was pretty much exactly a week before that we started seeing things that just weren't out of the normal for him, just little things that continued to add up. He just didn't seem himself. While he was quiet in general, he was even more so, a little more withdrawn, a little bit shorter in answers. And then Monday came along and he didn't go to work, which didn't, like I explained, just didn't happen very often. And so I asked him, what was wrong, why he didn't go to work? And he said that he wasn't feeling well, he didn't sleep well. And I thought, okay, he just is not feeling well. Went through the day again, just kind of quiet, short in answers. I believe it was that day or the next that packages started really pouring in, probably anywhere from 5 to 10 packages a day. He would get deliveries, one every, couple days or something. So, I mean, he did shop online, but that was just beyond anything we'd ever seen. And it was kind of alarming. It was really odd. And so Tuesday, he also didn't go to work. And then that point I'm going, okay, he wasn't visibly sick the day before. And I asked him, I could just sense that something was wrong. I think it was, those little things. And I remember Tuesday going into his room and asking him, he was kind of standing and pacing a little bit. And I told him, I said, Nathaniel, what's wrong? I said, please tell me what is wrong. And he mumbled, and I had to ask him 3 times to, speak clearly. And he said, China's going to kill us all. And I went, that's odd. You mean, he never worried about things like that before. I mean, he might be aware. He was very intelligent, but not overly panic or anything like that. And so we kind of we sat down on his bed and talked, and I kind of just, assuming that I could just kind of, talk to him. I explained, our previous conflicts with Russia and how, nothing came of that, even though, there were bomb drills and, just kind of our history. Also then, with North Korea more recently. And I told him, I said, we can only be prepared, but it may never happen. I mean, certainly we can prepare, but you can't live in fear. And this whole time he's just kind of, shaking his head like, yeah. And I thought, okay. And then we stood up to leave his room, and I remember giving him a hug. And he hugged me tighter and longer than he ever had. And I remember standing on my tiptoes. And I even still remember the feel of his beard. And I kissed him on the cheek and I said, I love you. And he says, I love you too. And, I felt pretty good at that point that, hopefully we could resolve. Wednesday came and he did go to work. I thought, oh, great. So maybe we're back on track. Meanwhile, again, packages still pouring in. They poured in actually after his death. We later found out that he went through nearly $20,000, all of his savings, and it was all survival gear. It was generators, Kevlar vests, I think they were. I don't know, my husband would know more, but it was all survival gear and prepping gear. And, we kind of, found that as we went along. But Wednesday we thought, okay, we're doing all right. And then he came home and I just normal greeting. My office that I work from home is right at the, by the door, and just our normal greeting. He always would come over, hug me. And he did that. And then later on in the day, my husband came home and he says, where's Nathaniel's truck? And I assumed it was here. He came in, I didn't look for his truck. And so my husband had asked him about it, and he said that his boss was in the area, and he just dropped him off. And that was odd. He had worked for him since we'd been back in Florida about 2 years, a little over 2 years. He worked for him for years when we lived down there before, and never had it happen. And he loved that truck. He had it paid off. He got it brand new. He was very proud of it. And so it was really odd. And when my husband asked him when he was going to go get his truck, because it was at the yard, he installed gutters. And it was at the yard where they keep their trucks and stuff. And he indicated, I'll get it. And he just didn't seem to really care, which was really odd. It just wasn't in line with how we normally would act. And so eventually my husband did take him up there and he picked it up. And then at one point, and I don't remember when it was, Nathaniel told me he had taken the rest of the week off. So I didn't think too much, at that point, Thursday and Friday when he didn't go to work. And he kept talking. He had taken the following week off. He had told us that, I think, earlier. And he was just debating on what to do. He talked about going up and visiting my sister in Ohio. I have 3 nieces. He was looking forward to, getting with them. He also talked about possibly going camping, which kind of explained what we knew of what was coming in at that point, because it was stuff you could use for camping as well. And we thought, okay. And so that was what he was talking through that week. Then Saturday, and let me, I guess, back up. We didn't find till after his death that Wednesday he didn't actually work. I found out from his boss that he went to work and he started packing up all his stuff like he was quitting. So his boss assumed he was quitting. And when he went up to the yard to talk with Nathaniel was vaping behind his truck. And I don't know if his boss knew exactly what he was vaping, but he seemed to from what he was talking about. And he said he went in the truck and talked with Nathaniel for hours, and that Nathaniel was telling him how the end of the world was going to happen that Monday. And he just talked those 2-3 hours about how China was going to attack Taiwan and going to attack us and bring down our grid and, do an EMP bomb, I think it's called. But just went into a lot of detail about the world ending. And that wasn't like him. And the thing that struck me that his boss said too was he wasn't Nathaniel. And again, just in that week. Then as we come on Saturday, the first odd thing on Saturday was we were talking about moving to Ohio to be closer to family. And so he had been packing up, which I assumed was just for the move. And then I was packing across the room from his room and his bathroom were next to each other. He had his own little living area in that layout. And I could see that he was in the bathroom. And the thing that struck me as odd was that the bathroom light was off. It was one of those motion detector lights. So you really you had to shut it off on your own. And I thought, well, that is odd, but I could hear the water running. And he hadn't been in there for about an hour. I mean, I still don't know if he was vaping or what was going on, but I just remember it just striking me as really odd. It then became about lunchtime. We hollered at him that we were going to go to our favorite pizza place, and he did go, because that was the other thing he was doing, is if we went out, he didn't act interested in wanting to go. He didn't really care if we brought anything back for him. He just wasn't interested in anything. And so we did go to the pizza place. We talked to him like normal. He seemed fine. Didn't see anything wrong. We talked, and we came back home. And a little bit later, we went grocery shopping. Brought home, a rotisserie chicken to sit down at the dinner table like we normally did, and just ate dinner. And the thing out of place, there were a couple things. I had finished early. I had went on the couch. We have an open floor plan, so I'm visible still. We're not very far away. And I heard the Facebook Messenger, and I looked down, and Nathaniel had texted me all of this, what looked to me at the time gibberish. And I'm like, I looked at him, I said, Nathaniel, why are you texting me stuff that doesn't make any sense? And he's like, And I'm like, okay, that's odd. And then he had sent a few more things after that. And then he had just left his plate at the table, which he would always take care of it. And it was only, half eaten. And then he went into his room. And a short time later, by then my husband had gone into the master bedroom. I was still on the couch, and Nathaniel had come out, and he went out the front door. My husband later had looked at the video camera and saw that he just kind of walked in his front of his truck, looked around a little bit like he was just looking at things, and then came back in. I heard the door, but I could hear that it didn't latch, and which is really odd. He's never left that door open. I thought, well, maybe he's going to go back out. And I waited a few minutes. He didn't. So I went up and closed and locked the door. I had then encountered him just a little bit later in front of the bathroom and asked him, Nathaniel, why'd you leave the front door open? Which we were getting a lot of that. And I just kept thinking that was weird. And then also, throughout that day, that feeling in the pit of my stomach that something's not right. And I don't remember which day it was, if it was that Saturday. I remember telling him, I said, we asked him continuously what was wrong, and we weren't getting anything. He was telling us that everything was okay. And I told him, I said, Nathaniel, you're scaring me. You're not acting like yourself. And I don't remember any response. I just had a gut feeling something was so very wrong, but what do you do with that? So I went and sat back on the couch. My husband came out shortly after out from the master, and I showed him the text. And then I told him about the front door, and I said, something's wrong. Something's really wrong. And he took the phone and he started walking to go talk with Nathaniel to see what was going on. He got to the bathroom, which it was just before his bedroom. And we heard the gunshot. My husband and then kicked down the door. And by then, I'm of course over there. As soon as I heard the gunshot. And as soon as that door was kicked in, my son is lying on the floor. He had shot himself under the chin. I didn't know it at the time. I knew he had shot himself, but it wasn't visible. I just remember blood coming out of his mouth. And I told my husband I called 911. He had my phone. And I was like, and 911 had him do CPR. And it felt like it took forever. It took like 11, 12 minutes for emergency to get there, which seemed crazy when we had a fire department literally about around the corner. I honestly, though, I think he was dead pretty well instantly. So I don't think it would have mattered, but something I remember. And I just remember thinking to myself, this can't be real. This can't be real. I said, please let me wake up. I just can't believe it. And so I'm like, is where there I'm looking, going back and forth the front door, and I'm like, where are they? Where are they? And they finally got there, and they first it was a police officer that came in. He came in. There's a few parts of that were a little hazy on what happened. My husband had said the officer had asked him to step away. I assume he maybe continued CPR, but it was shortly after that a number of the medics had gotten there, and they came in with the gurney, and there had been like 8 of them. And I remember, my husband had stood back a little bit and gave him room. And, there were some of them that were kind of out in the hall a little bit. And I remember the guy turning around and just going, and I knew I couldn't save him. And it was just, a flurry of them having to do what they had to do. And unfortunately, one of my last memories for them that night was that I was up in the front room after a detective had talked to us. And the medical examiner had wheeled up my son in a body bag. My sister has been a rock through this. I had called her, and obviously she was in shock as well. But she flew my other son, Kyle, and his wife down. And they were here by Sunday. This had all happened on Saturday. They were here by Sunday by noon. She was here. She stayed back long enough to see her daughter off to her first day of school, and then got right on a plane, and she was down here by Monday. While they were all here, obviously we had to make the normal arrangements, things that you don't even ever think about. You certainly don't think you're going to have to do for your child. And we went through his stuff in his room, just trying to get some answers. Also to find keys to a couple safes he had. One safe was going off. He had left his gun safe open. And so we wanted to, lock that up because it had guns in it. The police took the one that he had used. And as we went through stuff, and we were just still obviously just trying to make sense, and not that you ever really fully can. But one of the things that we found, and my son and daughter-in-law had to actually tell us really what it was, and that was he had a package of vape cartridges, and there was one that was open and was in, I don't know what you call them, but the thing that you use to smoke and everything. So they explained, that's what that was. And I was like, that's weird. We didn't even know. I mean, he never smoked cigarettes. He didn't do drugs that, we were aware of. He just wasn't the type to do that. And so it was kind of odd, but we had no idea. And I think it was a fairly recent, I had looked at some credit card statements as we were going through his stuff, and it was a recent purchase. It showed online. I don't know if it was a local, I know the shop was local, but I don't know if he ordered it online or if he went to the shop because it came out crosses.com, but it was probably only maybe a week before all of this that purchase was made. And I suspect online and came in the mail. So I think honestly, my thought is that he probably started that stuff the weekend before. And in effect, the one other thing we did find were Delta-8 gummy bears, and actually gummies. There were different kinds of gummies, and he had been taking those longer. So I don't know if they're, I don't understand all the science behind it. But the vape, I truly believe with all my heart that was the cause. I started seeing my therapist as soon as everything happened. He got me in right away, and I explained everything like I just told you. And he actually asked me, he said, I'd like to see the text. And so I showed him the text, and he read through it, and he said, I believe he was in at least a moderate psychosis, if not more severe. I believe he was hearing voices. He says, I know psychosis really well. That was kind of a specialty, if you will, that he studied, very familiar with it. And he had no doubt that that's what had happened. We have we have some depression, anxiety in the family, but other than that, there isn't anything. There's not schizophrenia. There isn't any kind of, any type of disorders that cause, hallucinations or any of that. And so it's the only thing that makes sense is that had triggered a psychotic episode and, made him somebody he wasn't. And in that, my therapist believed he probably was hearing voices, which if you read back that text he sent me, it almost was like he was arguing with the voices, kind of in code, which they said it was common when you have a psychotic break.
And
And
were
as I
the
read, go
and
ahead.
were the vapes, did they say Delta-8 on them too?
The one that was in the cartridge that was partially empty was actually a combination. It said THC-0, Delta-8, and Delta-10. So it
Okay.
had all three of those components in that particular one. And of course it was like some like gelato flavor. All of them were, flavored, and all the other ones I think were mainly just were just the Delta-8, but that particular one was the mixture. And I honestly, when I don't doing research, I don't really see where they normally combine those. So I also have questioned whether, even that combination made it even worse. I really don't know.
Yeah.
I do know through my research after the fact, I knew nothing about it before. And most of my friends and family didn't when I shared. They didn't know the dangers. And I don't think my son did. I don't believe my son would have touched that stuff had he known it could cause mental health issues. It just isn't who he was.
Yeah.
And so the more I researched it, and the more I saw that both that and marijuana can cause psychotic episodes, and it's just what makes sense. It all lines up. And I was just amazed how easy that stuff is to get a hold of.
Yeah.
There were no warnings on the package. The package said, basically, take 2 puffs every, I don't know what it was, 15 minutes. Like anybody was going to really follow that. But it warned nothing of any mental health possibilities. While I understand that some of it might have a genetic component, still, when is that side effect acceptable?
Right. And
What other medication on the market says, oh, by the way, you might have a psychotic break as a side effect? Nothing. I mean, my cold medicine I have to get from back behind the pharmacy. It makes no sense. This stuff is like everywhere. It's in a lot of the vape shops. It's in the convenience stores. It's so easy to get a hold of. And while the packaging said, plus 21, it's not just the 21-year-olds taking it.
Right.
It's
And
just crazy.
your son was older than 21, right?
Yeah, he was 26 years old.
26. And
Yeah, and he still lived with us, which we were there, of course.
well, yeah, that's okay. I mean, it's hardly anybody can live on their own nowadays with the
No,
economy.
like,
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And just to clarify to the audience who's listening, the products that Jennifer is describing are federally legal. They're federally legal. They were legalized by our Congress and our president in 2018. And the current administration has not done anything to correct this issue. They haven't done anything to correct these terrible products that Jennifer has described as so very accessible without any warning labels. And the Delta-8 THC is a little less potent than the Delta-9 THC that's found in the normal cannabis plant, the psychoactive drug. And the THC-O that Jennifer describes is 30 times more potent than the Delta-9s. We are talking about a synthetic, industrialized, very dangerous products that obviously has led to her son's passing that are legalized through our federal government. So what Jennifer's doing today is courageous. It's inspiring. My heart just breaks for her and her family. Her son matters. Nathaniel matters. And we need to not allow him to die in vain. We need you to share this podcast. We need you to tell your friends and families. We need you to tell your legislators to get these products off the shelves, to make them illegal to be transported through the mail system. And we need to support Jennifer and her family in this. And Jennifer, I think the audience would ask the next question, and you don't need to give any details if you are doing this. Are you pursuing a lawsuit?
I did attempt to reach out to a law firm there in Florida. At first, I went through the vetting process. They did get me through that, and then I got a call from the caseworker saying that they could not take the case. That he chose to take the product, he chose to kill himself, and there was nothing they could do. I said, and I had clarified, I said there was nothing on the package, and I explained what my therapist said, and he's like, nope. He's like, he chose to. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. There's no recourse that I could find against this company. They can provide something that causes a psychotic break and causes someone to kill themselves. And
yeah,
I don't understand.
And let's clarify this to the audience with that person's opinion that said that too, that he chose to do this. The information Nathaniel and so many other people are getting is that these products are medicine. They're called medicine, that they treat medical ailments, and they don't have any warning labels on them that say can cause psychosis, can increase the risk for suicide. So anything that is labeled as a medication or a treatment to treat some kind of other condition needs to be vetted through an FDA process with warning labels and be only prescribed by medical professionals that can monitor people. We have just completely circumvented the FDA and allowed this, what I call a predatory addiction for profit industry, to produce these products in deceptive forms like candies and vapes that attract the youth, that put fun flavors in it to mask up the real. If they sometimes if they could really taste how toxic these products are. They might not be consumed, but they mask them with these flavors. So they go into the body really easily. And the vapes, especially, like Jennifer mentioned, she thinks her son was doing some of the Delta-8 edibles before, but something changed too when he picked up the vapes, because the vapes are purposely designed to provide a fast hit, a turbo fast hit of high concentration THC to the brain to embed addiction, to cause the disease of addiction. So these drug profiteers can continue to make money off people that are addicted to their products. It's addiction economics, and they know exactly what they're doing. They're mimicking what the tobacco industry did years ago when they targeted the youth of America. And shame on America. We were supposed to learn from that, and all the people in the past that have worked so hard and poured their hearts out and their, just everything they had into holding the tobacco industries accountable. Now we have a governmental system that just allows these products to be very available and to destroy lives. And so I talk very strongly and harshly about this because Jennifer's not the only family I'm in touch with. And when I get another phone call from somebody like Jennifer who's lost their child, yes, he was a young man, but it's still always her child, this was preventable. All of this was preventable, and we're supposed to be better than this. We're supposed to be the greatest nation on the earth and protect the health and safety of our citizens, and especially our most vulnerable population, which is our children and our young adults. They're easy. It's very easy to target them and convince them otherwise. So, Jennifer, we thank you from the bottom of our heart for being here. I do have another question. When the therapist said to you that day that he or she is sure that your son, Nathaniel, was having a psychotic break and talked about psychosis, did you know what that was when he started talking about that?
A little bit. Many years ago, I did study psychology, so I did have an idea what that was. I, of course, went home and searched it out a little bit more to try to understand what it was exactly.
Yeah. So psychosis to the audience is a break from reality. Some of the symptoms can be hallucinations, which Jennifer describes that they feel her son was having auditory hallucinations, which is a hallmark sign of a THC-induced psychosis. Visual hallucinations can come from THC psychosis, but a lot of times you see them with the LSD or the mushrooms that are now being pushed to be legalized too, unfortunately. They can be paranoid, since some of the symptoms are paranoia, and obviously Nathaniel had that. Irrational thoughts, delusions, and Nathaniel was experiencing that too. And so, the stigma of the law firm or whoever it was that told Jennifer that her son chose to do this is very undereducated and has stigmatized what psychosis is, what mental illness is, and that person in our country in general has completely disrespected the power of THC. This drug is so powerful that it led to psychosis in Nathaniel, and I 100% support Jennifer on this, and led to his suicide. And I say this out of experience and out of, now we're in the thousands. It used to be hundreds of families that I've been contacted with. Now we're in the thousands. And we've had families start speaking out about this back in 2014 and 15 and have worked really hard. Now we have even more and more parents. So we are not going to be quiet about this. We are not going to allow Nathaniel and all the other beautiful people that we have lost to die in vain. And we need your help. We need your help, America. We need you to share this podcast. We need you to, I'm going to put education in the description to describe the science and the clear messages about these hemp products. Remember, these are not products from the cannabis plant. These are products from the hemp plant, which means the 2018 Farm Bill legalized hemp under the Farm Bill. and then which legalized CBD, and they're taking the abundance of CBD and they're converting it to all these different variants of THC. And you can read more about that description. You can send us an email or a message at info@everybrainmatters.org if you have any questions or concerns. If you want to share your story, if you want to be part of a growing community that will not be quiet and will stand arm to arm with Jennifer and her family for the health and safety of our families and our children and our communities, please join us here. Sign up for our newsletter. We make very easy advocacy work for you to do. We have linked arms with the Parent Action Network, which is a project of Sam's Smart Approach to Marijuana. We've linked up with Jennifer's messengers, not this current Jennifer, but another young lady, Jennifer, who was killed by a marijuana impaired driver. So we have a whole community here of advocates and families, and America's better than this, and we're worth this time and effort, and Nathaniel mattered. And so we give a big hug to Jennifer and her family, and we thank them, and we're grateful for her voice, what she just did here today. There's nothing easy about it. Takes a lot of strength and courage, only that a mother can do, a mother or father can do, because of the love of their children. It's too late for her son, but it's not too late for all of yours. And I could say, I know that's what's driving her right now. She cares about your kids and she cares about your families, and that's why she's here. And Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I feel from you from a few times.
Absolutely. I can't help but think, if others had spoke up before, that didn't happen, but I can.
Yes.
If I can help one parent from not experiencing this, it's worth it. No one should have to lose their child like this at all.
Absolutely. And have you been in contact with the FDA?
I have. I did fill out their form. I provided them pictures of the product and gave them all the information. I haven't heard anything. I don't know if they ever contact back, but I did fill out their form.
Okay. So one thing we can do, not only do we want the audience to share this podcast, send it to the FDA, send it directly to the commissioner. We'll provide that information too for you in the description. You don't have to go search for it. We'll give you the exact email address and how to do this, and say that we want answers. We want to know why. We have another family, Sonia, that Jennifer has connected with. Sonia says to me, they pulled Bluebell ice cream off the shelf in the state of Texas very easily when a few people were harmed. Why are these products still on our shelf? We need answers. We want answers to these questions. And if Congress needs to change the law to pull these off the shelves, we need our Congress members to do the job. And we need the President of the United States to sign it into law that these products are outlawed and not accessible. So thank you, Jennifer. Any final words that you want the audience to know?
Nothing comes to mind. I just thank you for what you're doing, and just want to be able to help others.
And you are. Thank you for being here with us. And we give you our condolences and our love. And we'll have you back on again with a few other families so we can continue to raise awareness. Thank you for all you do. And our hearts are with you.
Thank you.